Hello, welcome everybody to tonight's event. Project can make a difference. Fortunate I hear the community Yarra Ranges, also known as Healesville CoRE. My name is Roberts and I'm the President of Healesville CoRE, and it's a fantastic project to let you know tonight. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that this event is taking place with the land and the Range people, building motions, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Today I was going to do a little bit different in that it's here on read, and we're going to have a chat with you. It's also going to be more interactive, so not us just presenting and you just passively watching. We're really encouraging you to use the Q&A function and ask some questions as you go along. We've already got a few questions from some of you who've registered and asked questions, but we're going to be asking you to do more. And we'll do our best to ask them. So let's introduce the panellists now. To my left, we have here Lucinda Flynn. Lucinda's from Going Green Solutions, and what she doesn't know about energy efficiency, home energy efficiency, isn't worth knowing. We have Sue Parry next to her, and Sue is one of Access the Home Energy Efficiency Program, and she made some changes to her home, and she's quite delighted with the results. And then we have Matthew Leeson. Matthew is from Leeson Group. They've been installing solar for many years now, and he's here to answer your questions in solar. Next to Matthew, we have Carol Taylor. She's stepping in for Flynn Meredith, who couldn't be here tonight. And she also is our Healesville CoRE secretary, and she had a heat pump as well, which she's very happy with. Next to Carol, we have Amy Gregorovich from Yarra Ranges Council. And Amy is very keen to share with you stories about the microgrid that is proposed for Healesville and some other things that Council are proposing as well. And last but definitely not least, we have Ross Coulson. Ross came to one of our events last year on EVs, electric vehicles. He was a little bit sceptical at first, but he left thinking, this is for me, and he hasn't looked back. So before we get into it, I'd just like to tell you a little bit more about Healesville CoRE, just in case you haven't come across us before. So we were established back in 2017. Our founder was very frustrated with the lack of climate change action in the political arena, so he decided to do something about it. And he called a town meeting. And 230 equally frustrated people turned up to see what they could do and how they could help. And I was one of those people, and I've been involved with Healesville CoRE ever since. And look, I have to say that I'm quite proud of what we've achieved so far. We've established community offers for solar, for heat pumps, and for reverse cycle air conditioning. We run free community events such as this one. We've also established a revolving fund which installs solar on community buildings. And I think probably our most valuable service that we can offer is a home energy efficiency program, which is where the home energy assessors come out to your home, have a look, and just see if there's ways that can make it more comfortable and reduce your power bills, reduce your emissions, win-win. So that's where we're going to start tonight.
We're from Healesville CoRE.
Welcome.
The energy audit sounded like a great idea coming out of the meeting I was at, and it was really simple to arrange. 2 volunteers from Healesville CoRE came to do the audit for me. Their infrared camera was the first part of the process, and that was really useful because I could see how inefficient my windows were in terms of containing heat in the winter, and made it obvious I have already got insulated blinds, but I really need to use them all the time. But I also was really interested to see what extra insulation I could put in the house, and the most obvious suggestion was to insulate underneath the house, and that's made a huge difference to how warm the house is in winter. I've also eliminated drafts from doors that were not properly sealed, and that was an easy process, simply putting extra tape with padding around it to make them close properly. But it was a very useful process. It's really made the house much more livable in the winter. I just don't want to see the planet ruined, and I don't want my impact to contribute to that any more than it has to. We all have an impact on the environment, but we don't have to do it to the detriment of people who follow us or other people with less advantage than I've got. I found Healesville CoRE really dedicated and committed people with a cause that I think is really important. I guess I like their core values. And I think the opportunities that they've offered people through their bulk purchasing and making suggestions for change are all really positive.
Thank you, Lucinda. Lucinda has got a presentation to give you some ideas about making changes in your home. Thank you. So my job is I'm a scorecard assessor. I'm an energy efficiency assessor, and it's a job I really love because I get to meet a lot of interesting people. And really, in a nutshell, what I think I do is I help people understand how their homes work, and I find it a very rewarding thing to do. How do I? Sorry. The first thing, I guess, that I like to talk about is what is an energy efficient home. I think that sometimes people think they only think of it in terms of actual energy, and that it might be about not using energy and turning things off and perhaps being a bit frugal. But what it's actually about is learning how your home uses energy, how it might either store energy in the winter inside or keep it outside in summer. So it's much more than just whether you turn something on or not. It's how your entire house works along with you, with the occupants. So what we're aiming at when we still don't have our slides. What we're aiming at with an energy efficient home is one that's so comfortable that it actually doesn't need as much energy. We certainly don't expect people to turn things off and not be comfortable. We want the house to just be more comfortable naturally. Then it will cost less to run, and as a result, you have reduced carbon emissions, or if you manage to completely electrify, then potentially even no carbon emissions, which is an absolutely amazing goal. So Victorian homes and really Australian homes are typically inefficient. Sometimes they're described as glorified tents, and some of us can really relate to that. I think the main reasons are that we've had historically very cheap fuel, gas and electricity, and we haven't really we don't have very good building codes, so that we get away with quite poor building practices, which we're still living in those houses today and still will be for a long time. I think that it's a combination of things that make our homes so poor in terms of energy efficiency. But the good news is that means that pretty much every home in Victoria has a lot of things often that they can do to improve it. So it is a really, really good opportunity for us to make a difference. If I am looking at a home and how energy efficient it is, I'll always look at it in terms of three things. One is the building shell thermal efficiency. Sometimes that's called the building envelope, and it's pretty much everything that is between you and the outside. So it includes windows, doors, insulation, whether there's drafts, window coverings, that sort of thing. Then there's the actual appliances that you use and how efficiently they do their job. And then there's user behaviour. So how you use the appliances and how you use your building. Just back to that other slide for one sec. One of the things that is good about this is that depending on your circumstances, your budget, there will always be something in this trio that you can put your attention to. So ideally, you will have a fantastically great building shell, you'll have really efficient appliances, and you'll use your home really well. But if you're renting in a share house, or if you just happen to have no budget, sometimes you might be able to start with user behaviour, and that's okay. You don't have to do all of them all at the same time. But this means that you have always got an opportunity to plug in somewhere with more energy efficient aspects of your home.
So the first one, building shell, I mentioned it's everything that's between you and the outside. One of my favourite quotes, I don't know who said it, but I heard it, is that the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use. To me, there's a lot of chatter about, you know, who can you go with, which electricity company can you go with for a cheaper price? And it's as if people think that getting a cheaper price is going to be the fix that they need. To me, it's only ever a temporary measure, because you might get a lower rate, but it's going to go up again probably in 6 months. And really, if you think about it, the things that you can do to your building shell to make your home better at keeping heat in winter and out in summer, that is going to mean that you're using less energy long term, not just for the 6 months that you've got a good deal. And so building shell, to me, is about making your home better so that you don't need the energy. The appliances is about everything that you use and how efficiently they give you the effect that you want. But it's also about looking at ways that you might be able to generate some of the energy that you need for your home. So if you start with a building shell, you reduce the amount that you need, then you make sure you've got really efficient appliances. And then user behaviour is a really important one. You can see in this slide, there's a beautiful blind there, but you can have a blind, but how well you know how to use it effectively and you actually do use it is another thing. So sometimes people have aspects to their home that might give them an opportunity to be a lot more efficient, but they haven't worked out quite how to use them to their best advantage. So that's why all of those things offer some good ways to improve your home and comfort. Sometimes I think probably not the people listening here, because I'm guessing you all have an idea that it is worthwhile being more energy efficient for whatever reason. But sometimes you do come across people who think, well, I could do these things, but why would I? What is it actually going to give me? And the tool that I use to do energy assessments is called the scorecard tool. One of the things I like about it is that it gives a star rating to a house that is a cost rating. So just like a fridge, it will say, if you use this house in a standard way, it's probably going to use about this much energy a year and cost you this much to run. So it's a similar sort of thing. And I find that can be a good way for people to get a really concrete idea of what their home is costing them. So, for example, the Victorian average star rating for a house is 3 stars. And you'll see on the slide that means they spend roughly $1,800 a year just on the main fixed appliances in the house. So that's heating, cooling, lighting, hot water. It does include fridges and televisions and things like that. It's quite a significant amount if you think about it. And if through me doing an assessment or one of the Healesville CoRE people coming to your house and helping you work out what you could do to that house to bring it to what would be the equivalent of a 6-star scorecard rating, there would be basically $1,000 a year savings. And so this can show you that yes, you might spend a little bit of money doing these upgrades, but you can then quantify how it's actually going to benefit you. And it is a real cost benefit. We're not just thinking that we should do it because it feels nice. It is actually beneficial for you, for your pocket, amongst everything else. And one more thing I want to mention, which I don't know if it's being discussed here, but Saul Griffith and Rewiring Australia. I'm guessing you've probably all heard of him, but basically what he's saying is that I think it was 42% of Australia's household emissions, Australia's carbon emissions are from households. So if we can take all of our gas and petrol homes, as in gas and petrol car homes, and electrify them all, use EVs and solar, then we have the capacity to reduce all those emissions to zero. And that gives us an incredibly big opportunity to make a difference to our our national emissions. So I just want to point that out. If you haven't seen him, it's worth looking him up. There's a half-hour Australian Story episode on him, and it's very, very inspiring. So you may have gathered there are lots and lots of different things that we could talk about in terms of energy efficiency, but I'm just going to leave you, it says 8 tips, but there's actually 6. I must have been really excited when I wrote that, but I've got you the best 6, I promise. So I'm going to just leave you with 6 tips along the lines of small changes can make a difference. So these are some small things that I think a lot of people would be able to do to get them on the road. So the first one is heat with your split system. Also called reverse cycle air conditioner. I don't know why they're called both things, but they are the same thing. And a lot of people will have these, but only use them for cooling and haven't considered using them for heating, but they are the most efficient option. If you'd like more information about that, ask one of the volunteers or Healesville CoRE. I'm sure they can tell you more about it. Setting the thermostat is always a good plan. And the picture on the bottom you'll just see is dirty filters. So at the front of every air conditioner that you can flip open. Usually they flip open from the front and you just pull those out and give them a wash. They can make the difference between your system working incredibly well and not working very well at all. So easy to do, doesn't cost a thing. The second one is personal heating devices of every shape and size. You can get them these days from any homeware stores. And it's everything from the electric blanket to heated seat pads, heated vests, heated throws. But the reason they're so efficient is because rather than heating all of the air in a room, you're heating your body. And that means that you could be sitting in a comparatively cool room, but still be toasty warm. It's also really good when there's people in a house that have different heating needs so that you can not need to heat it to the heat that is required by the person that needs it the most hot, if that makes sense. Tip 3 is to create zones, and we might hear about zones in a minute because it's Sue, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Sue added some amazing zones to her house after she had her visit from the home energy advisor. But zoning is about creating smaller areas within your house that you can heat and cool as needed. And this is sometimes one of the simplest and cheapest ways to reduce your energy bill and make you more comfortable. Because if your unit is only trying to heat half the size it was before, it's just going to work better and you're going to feel it more. So that can often be very simple, as much as hanging up a lightweight curtain or sometimes replacing doors that might have been taken off. But it's often very simple to do. Sealing drafts is tip 4, and this can be very rewarding. Some of them are easy to do or free under the Victorian Energy Upgrade Scheme. Got a few examples there. Again, an advisor can have a look around your house and point out some of the drafts that might be there. Tip 5 is to reduce heat loss through windows. One of the simplest ways to do that is with good window coverings or treatments. Heavy lined curtains or honeycomb blinds installed really well into the window rebate can have a massive effect. So it's not always double glazing might be a nice long-term option, but if you need something that's easier to achieve, if you're in a rental, something like this can be a great option. Tip 6 was to go to Healesville CoRE and ask one of the people there to do an energy efficiency assessment for you. Right. Okay. And I've also got a few websites for resources for you, which is hopefully in here somewhere too. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Lucinda. We did have one question that somebody had asked earlier. You might have covered it sort of, but it was switching over to electricity for energy consumption. How do you get started? Who do you talk to?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk to that one?
Well, I'll probably be repeating myself to a degree. I think there is, I'd like to hear what Sue thinks, but to me, there is nothing as useful as having somebody come to your house and sit at your kitchen table and look at what you have and say, what do you want out of this? What's your budget? What are your goals? And then how about you could do these things in this order? Getting off gas, I know from experience, it's taken us a while, and sometimes it's about just not necessarily ripping everything out and replacing it, but just having plans for what you're going to do when something needs replacing, and knowing in advance so that it's an easy thing to do. I don't know if that helps, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so, because basically the efficiency that I had was related to physical things, not the source of power in the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And mine was more in terms of drafts and insulation.
Yeah.
More questions come through, Michelle?
Yes, somebody wants to know how far does our free service go?
Okay, so that's probably a question for me. At the moment, Healesville CoRE volunteers will travel around about up to half an hour. So anywhere half an hour from Healesville we can do. And I think somebody else was asking about the training as well. It's a couple of days, isn't it, Lucinda, to do the training?
Yeah, in the past it's been 2 days training and then 1 day site visits, where we usually go to 2 different places and spend a morning at one and an afternoon at another. And so depending on the amount of students there are, we usually can only have about 5 students at each site day. But it means we often do go to the houses of the students as well to use those as test cases.
Thanks for that. Don't forget to send your questions in through the Q&A function. There's probably a lot to unpack there, but we do have a lot to talk about today, so we might move on now. And we might watch the heat pump. Coming right up. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'll just have to share.
So way.
Oops. See lots of stuff here. Sorry about this.
There is another question here. Don't curtains shut create a need for artificial lighting?
Yes, you're right. Curtains are only useful if they're closed. So my general thinking about windows is to treat every window in your house as its own thing. So you would want to be looking at, where is the window? Is it in a place that you use in the daytime or the nighttime? Is it your study? I don't think that there's one solution for every window. So often curtains can be good in bedrooms, because generally they would be closed at night. But in a living space where if you always wanted to have natural light there, you might decide to choose another upgrade option instead, like glazing upgrades. So it's not one size fits all for anything really to do with this, I think. Just still some technical questions. So if you've got any questions, put them into the chat. Another one?
Yeah, there is another question. Assessment. How long is the wait for an assessment?
Oh. Well, this might be a good time to actually, while we're sorting out our technical problem here, to put the call out for home energy assessors. So we've got a small team at the moment. We'd love to increase that. So we're hoping to, we've already got somebody who's indicated that they're interested in becoming an assessor. Short answer to that is it depends how many queries we get, how many people want to have their homes assessed, and how quickly we can get out there to you. But if we had a call out right now while we're waiting, that would be awesome, because we're it only takes a couple of days, as Lucinda said, and then we will buddy you up with one of our current assessors, and you'll get to go out and help people. It won't be on a roster as such. You know, we can't really say that. It does depend on how many people do want to have this done on their homes. And we're hoping after tonight there might be a few more. So if you are interested in becoming a home energy assessor and joining our happy team, please go to our website and register, and we'd be very, very happy to have a chat with you. I think we're ready to move on to the next video now, which is heat pumps.
We moved down here about 8 years ago. The house had an existing hot water system out there.
When it started leaking and going rusty, we decided we had to have a new hot water system. So we investigated what was available from the Healesville CoRE group, and they suggested a heat pump.
So we thought about it, thought, well, it was really good timing to join in with that. So we went ahead with that. Since then, I've done a sort of little review of what the saving has been, and over the 2 years that it's been running, we've saved 25% on our previous electricity bills. Great thing.
Another remarkable thing about the system was when the power went out.
Yeah, a really close lightning strike happened, and of course lights all went out like they often do here. You know, eventually the power came back on again, and everything was okay. But about 6 days later, we realised that the water was starting to get a bit cold. It had switched itself off, but with this storm that happened, and yeah, we got 6 days worth of showers without the water going cold, so we were pretty pleased with that. And he was able to just turn it back on, and it immediately started heating.
Well, reducing the carbon footprint is a responsibility that we all have, because it's the right thing to do. It's a matter of survival.
We have to do it. We have to start now.
Okay, we did have one question about heat pumps, and we've got Carol here. So, Carol, somebody has been asking, how big is a heat pump? Where did you put it? And is it noisy?
They basically are installed outside the house. So, and it's a while since I've actually had a hot water tank system, but it looks like it's just like a tank, looks like a water tank full of hot water. And beside it, there is the fan, the pump that drives the hot air coming in and so on to heat the water. So that was, how big is it? What was the next question, please?
Is it noisy?
Is it noisy? Okay. So I actually went, because they're typically installed not in where the sun is, but they try and install them in the shaded area. So on my house, it's at the back of the house, which is essentially in shade most of the day. And because it's away from the main rooms and the bedrooms, I had to think about this one because I don't ever hear anything.
Oh, that's
so because what's next to the lounge room or anything. So I went outside this morning just to check, and you can hear a bit of a noise of the fan going around, but it's probably less noisy than my reverse cycle air conditioner. So, you know, like when you switch one of those on, you get the noise, it's sort of coming out. So there's a little bit of noise, but not much. That's about it. I have to say, I think they're great. This wasn't a question that was asked, but I'm just saying it. I got my heat pump. My heat pump is powered by my solar panels on the roof. So it's actually sort of like totally coming from the solar generated electricity. And I switched from an instant gas hot water system because I found that really took a long time for the hot water to come through and not very efficient. And this is way, way, way better.
Do you want to look at?
Oh, okay.
Oh, thanks for that, Carol. That's great. We've just had one more comment come through. Somebody says, Chris says that I have a heat pump outside my bedroom window and I never hear it day or night. So that's very great. Thanks for letting us know that, Chris. That's fantastic. All right. I think if there's no more questions come through.
Question.
Oh, hang on. One more. Here we go. I have existing hot water service right inside the house. The heat pumps need to be outside. How does installation work in this case?
I can't necessarily answer all of that because I don't have an internal hot water system. But basically, I know that the heat pump has to be installed outside the house, preferably somewhere in the shade.
I think
That's my understanding. I could possibly be wrong.
I think we might pass on to Lucinda for this.
Lucinda might know. I'm sure probably knows more than I do.
So if you have an existing hot water system inside, that you would need to get a I can't remember what it's called, but the heat pump that has the tank and then has the condenser separate, and the condenser, the unit with the fan in it, has to be outside, but the tank can be inside. So technically you could put, if you have an indoor tank, you could replace that with the heat pump tank and then maybe put the condenser on the roof. So it is possible. Yeah, you'd want to have somebody come and have a look.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lucinda. Well, we don't seem to have any more questions for that one, so we need to move along. So we're going to watch another video. This is of the electric vehicle, and coming right up here.
Well, let me start by saying I'm really happy with my decision to buy an electric vehicle when I did. It's not just about the current petrol prices, but it's more about zero emissions and sustainability. I'd done a lot of research into electric vehicles about a year and a half ago. I knew it was something that we as a family wanted to do. That research got put away as other priorities in life seemed to take over. However, we attended the Healesville CoRE Electric Vehicle Information Day and Seminar, where we had an opportunity to listen to people who had already committed to electric vehicles, and we had opportunity to listen to people, experts in the field. And I came away from that event feeling quite energised, determined that not only would my next vehicle be an electric car, but it would be ASAP, as soon as possible. So I picked out my notes, I got straight back into the market, and fortunately we were able to place an order and receive the car within 6 weeks. I really enjoy the driving experience of the car. It's very responsive. Some of the other things I don't miss about petrol cars is the smell and the noise, and the constant worry about is there enough oil and fluid in it. I certainly don't miss lining up at petrol stations to pay the prices that we're now seeing. I'm saving a fortune in ice cream with the girls coming along with me. I really enjoy being able to charge the car at home conveniently. I expected that the heavy battery, you would feel the car having to drag that around, but it's very well balanced, and you don't feel, it doesn't affect the performance at all. Another thing I've really noticed is because you have all the torque available the moment you touch the accelerator, things like overtaking become very efficient and very safe as a result. To anyone who's still a little bit reluctant about the idea of committing to an electric vehicle, I'd suggest you just have a test drive, book in at an event or go to one of the community-based days where you can meet owners and test drive the vehicles, and just get an understanding that they're actually very much like a normal car, but also start to understand the benefits of zero emissions vehicles. My perception of the Healesville CoRE is as a very proactive and involved, a genuine community group. We became connected to Healesville CoRE before we even moved into the area, because we were looking for a region with an active community, a genuine sense of community, and we found at the heart of that was some of the ambitions and the goals of the Healesville CoRE.
So that video is over now. I hope you enjoyed that. And I can see that Ross is very much enjoying his electric vehicle. We do have a few questions that have been asked about EVs. That's generated a lot of interest. First one, Ross, how are EVs better for the environment than petrol-based vehicles?
Well, at first I thought we were watching a remake of maybe Smokey and the Bandit there, without the petrol. Sorry, what was the question again?
How are electric vehicles better for the environment?
How are they? Well, they don't emit carbon dioxide for a start, nor nitrogen oxide or particulates and local pollutions, which is the main reason why they're better for the environment. They do have what's called every vehicle that's built has a carbon dioxide debt, a CO2 debt, which is basically an overhead in the production of the car, how much carbon it takes or is emitted in the production of the vehicle. And electric vehicles have a higher CO2 debt when they roll off the showroom floor in comparison with a petrol vehicle. So it will take several years to pay off that debt. And if you are using renewable energy or solar to charge the vehicle, then obviously the time you take to pay off that carbon debt is reduced drastically.
Yep, absolutely. Now, somebody else wants to know, would you pick a hybrid over an EV, and what are the pros and cons of both?
I'm very biased towards EVs. I wouldn't pick a hybrid. One of the primary reasons is I don't think it's going to be a technology that's going to get a lot of investment in the automotive industry over the next 10 years. Other things are because it's got a dual battery motor and petrol engine, maintenance costs are actually higher, whereas EV maintenance costs are much lower. For example, my first service will be due in the first 3 years, so not for the first 3 years, and that's going to cost about $150. It probably involves washing the windows, I think.
Wow.
Other elements, other pros and cons of EVs. I haven't driven a hybrid car, to be honest. What I enjoy about driving an EV is it's a very immersive experience. It's a one-pedal drive system, which allows it to regenerate the battery as you're driving. So you don't actually need to use the brake at any time, although obviously you can use it in the event of an emergency or if you need it. But that's pretty much it for pros and cons, I could think. Yep.
Okay. And how hard is it to find charging stations, and how much do you pay to charge?
Well, it's actually very easy to find charging stations. The car tells me where they are, and it also tells me if anyone's using the charging station at the time, so I can choose which ones are vacant, so I don't have to wait any longer. The charging at a public station process is very easy. You've just load up the app into your phone and you just roll up to the charging station, plug it in, and it pays via your account. Now, as far as the cost of charging the car is concerned, I barely pay anything because the first thing I did is install a charging station at home. And I would recommend that to anybody because it just gives you that flexibility to get the car charged at a level where you can commute as far as you need to in the next day. As far as public charging stations are concerned, you'd be looking at maybe about $2.50, well, maybe about $3.50 per 100 kilometres, which might compare to an equivalent car of somewhere around $18 to $20 per 100 kilometres. But for myself, in the peak of summer with over 10 kilowatts of solar, I don't pay anything for charging the car over summer, and over the winter, I supplement that with renewable energy through Amber at wholesale prices. So I'd probably be paying about $2.50 per 100 kilometres. And it's also possible with the charging station at home and a smart charger attached to the house, or a smart meter, I should say, I can actually charge on solar excess. So the car only charges when my house isn't using any solar. It takes a lot longer that way, but you're effectively paying zero as a result.
Sounds good to me. We've just had it's just a comment from Tony saying on the state government distance charge as part of the registration. Do we have any comment on that?
I do have a comment. I forget it's there because it's only 2.5 cents per kilometre, which is compared to, I can't remember the maths on the petrol excise, but it's something closer to 45 to 50 cents a litre. So it's marginal compared to what the government are charging you per kilometre for using petrol.
Good point. And we did have another question here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this one, Ross. It's can we have a discussion about the different EV batteries and their pros and cons?
Different EV batteries. I'm most familiar with lithium. I know a lot of people are doing conversions based on lead acid batteries. Now, the benefit of lead acid batteries is they are more recyclable at this point in time as far as recycling technology is concerned. So when they become less efficient for driving a car, they can be repurposed, as can lithium batteries. Over the journey, though, or over the length of your ownership of the car, lead acid batteries are going to cost a lot more because you have to replace them more often. They exhaust a lot more quickly. The lithium battery in my car is 78 kilowatts. I don't know how much that's going to cost to replace it, but it has a warranty of 8 years. So if it's not holding charge at 70% after 8 years, it will be replaced. So that tells me that the battery will still be very efficient after 8 years. And if we look at the technology curve being invested in lithium power at the moment, I expect in 8 years' time, if I did need to replace that battery, it would actually be quite inexpensive by comparison.
Good to hear. We do have another one from Rowan who's asking about the insurance. Is the insurance any different to a combustion engine?
No, it's no different, except I note that Coles Insurance wouldn't touch an electric vehicle and they wouldn't explain why. But there's no difference as far as the electric car is concerned for insurance premiums. It's the same. Although UE offered me free petrol as part of my premium, and they couldn't offer me anything equivalent, and I politely declined that offer.
Oh dear. Okay, I think we've all right, thank you so much, Ross. I think we've come to the end of your segment now, so we need to keep moving along. Okay, now it gives me pleasure to introduce Matthew Leeson. Matthew is from the Leeson Group. They've been installing solar for many, many years, and he's got a short presentation on his company, and then he is happy to answer your questions on solar. On to you, Matthew.
Thank you. Okay. Just wait for the presentation to be brought up. Okay, so we just have a quick introduction to the company, just to let everyone know what we do in the solar industry, and hopefully win over some of your trust that my answers to your questions are going to be correct. So, introduction to the company. Leeson Group's vision is to drive Australia's transition to renewable energy. So, by pioneering this with the initiative with our award-winning team and specialised resources, we continue looking to form partnerships to help power our nation and transform the lives of Australians. We have a big ethos in our business of trying to make our power sources clean rather than relying on dirty coal. So, a bit of history. 2011, small family business. We started, my brother and myself. By 2014, we designed and installed 200 kilowatt build integrated facade in Southeast Asia. Followed the next year, we'd won 2 national solar design installation awards from the Clean Energy Council. At the same time, we had 200 megawatts of solar farms under development in our Leeson Projects business that focuses on utility scale solar. 2018, we won the contract for national installation of building integrated solar tiles, which is building integrated solar is BIPV. So you'll probably hear that acronym a bit in the solar land. The same year, we're completing power system grid modelling in Kiribati in the South Islands. So fairly diverse. By 2020, we had 50 megawatts of solar farms built and 800 megawatts under development across Victoria. And last year, we released our newest product to the market, which is the Volt Solar Tile. We've been working on development of this solar tile for 7 years now. So it's another part of our business called Volt Solar Tile. So it's a bit of a cap of our business. Let's flip to the next one. So we believe in a future with an abundance of financially accessible energy, one that no longer harms our planet, and working towards ensuring a secure future for generations to come. As part of our business, we have Leeson Solar that does installations of residential, commercial, industrial solar systems. Leeson Projects, which is our utility scale solar farm development team, and Australian BioPV, which is our business that owns the Volt Solar Tile product, all currently running along. So we've worked with councils across Victoria, installing large-scale commercial solar systems on some of their facilities, everything from fairly complex microinverter systems for Whittlesea Council through to systems on commercial buildings with high-end frontiers inverters, Tesla batteries, etc. Some of residential projects here, standard solar panels you can see on the left. This was a fantastic client out in Casterton, far west Victoria, who wanted to do his bit, move away from using coal-fired power. There's a brilliant system there with a Tesla Powerwall that actually powers up some of his solar when the grid outage happens. They experience some grid outages out there that can go on for days at a time, but his solar and battery keep working during the grid outages. Top right is a custom system we made for one of our clients in Balwyn who wanted to maintain the aesthetics of his home. He had shading issues across the internal valley between the two gables and didn't want to see solar panels from the outside of the property, so he made a custom mounting frame to flat mount solar panels on that system. And this here is our solar tile product, part of the marketing for it. You'll probably see it out and about over the next couple of years. And there is a couple of the best looking blokes in the company with it's our new solar tile product there in the Platinum range. It's a 115 watt solar tile in front of a standard solar panel, so you can get a scale of the size difference between them. Solar farm development. So a lot of people, as Ross explained before, can purchase green energy even if they're not actually generating themselves by going with certain retailers that will buy it. A lot of that comes from utility scale solar farms. We've been working in the development of those since 2015. Most notably the 34 megawatt Kahuna solar farm, which is up and running, and we have a current pipeline of 800 megawatt in the connection application process in Victoria and 1 gigawatt total Australian-wide. So a couple of our systems here that we've won awards for, one being a flexible solar panel system over a curved roof at the Port of Melbourne, and on the right, a BIPV facade in Richmond on a new building under construction. So that takes me to that part.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. I think we can trust him to answer our questions. And I should also mention that I talked about our revolving fund earlier on. We have 3 buildings here in Healesville that we install solar, and we picked Matthew's group to do that for us. So, first question. We've had a few questions about recycling solar panels. There's a few people wanting to know what happens to all the solar panels when they need replacing. How are they recycled these days?
Yeah, so solar panel recycling is really in its infancy in Australia and worldwide, to be honest. I mean, solar panels have been getting installed in Australia for 15, 20 years or so. It's only really become mainstream in the last 10 years. As such, we're starting to find systems now that are being replaced, mainly to move towards more efficient systems. When this happens, obviously we need to do something with the solar panels. Now, they have chemicals and things inside them that can leach into the environment and cause issues. So it's been a large concern of ours and a lot of people in the industry for a long time. Fortunately, the government is doing things about this. So solar panels that are not being reused are considered e-waste. So, and in Australia, ACT and Victoria, that are not allowed to go to landfill. And the conversation is happening in other states and territories to finalise which direction they're going to go in regards to how e-waste is handled. While over about 95% of components in solar panels are recyclable, there's financial and environmental constraints on recycling such a high percentage of the panels due to the process required to separate the glass, the silicons, and the polymers. So the aluminium frame, the cabling, and the junction box are easily recycled, but they only make up about 15 to 20% of the weight of the solar panel, and there's still quite a few particles left. So industry and researchers are pushing to find new ways to extract the precious components, such as nanosilicon, which sells for upwards of $60,000 a kilogram. So as we find new ways to recycle solar panels more efficiently, and to find and store these precious components from them, it's becoming more commercially viable for the recycling to happen correctly. So some of the researchers at Deakin University in Geelong recently announced they have found a way that is cheap and effective and environmentally safe to extract the nanosilicon, and now they're working with industry partners in ways to make it commercially viable. So finding environmentally friendly ways to extract these types of expensive materials is important because not only does it save the carbon footprint associated with procuring these materials elsewhere, but it covers the cost of properly recycling e-waste while avoiding the retired panels from causing environmental damage elsewhere. So as I said before, solar panel recycling is in its infancy, but as it becomes more commercially viable to achieve better things with them, the cost of recycling them comes down.
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive answer. We've had a few questions about this one too. Is there anything you can do if your house is too shaded for solar?
Unfortunately, solar panels need the sun. If they could operate without the sun, it'd be fantastic. So there's a lot of hype out there. Some people spruik certain technologies that mitigate issues caused in string systems. So if you have, imagine you have a large chimney running across from the gutter line of your roof, and you erect a solar panel system directly behind it. Anytime that, as the sun moves through the sky, that chimney shades certain panels, those panels technically become a slight resistance in the string and degrade and detract from the whole string's potential generation in a standard string system. There's microinverters that can be used in those scenarios, and also optimizers, things like Tygo and SolarEdge, etc. But if the whole roof is shaded and it's shaded the whole time, it's generally there's nothing to be done about that. Unfortunately, if it is shaded by trees, shrubs, etc., they can be pruned and cut. There's other options too. Often people will overlook, just because you don't have available roof space on your home, it doesn't mean you still can't have solar. So there's things like solar carports, where you can install a carport structure that you park your car in. It can be dual purpose. You could even mount a electric vehicle charger to the posts across, and the solar panels can go on top of that. So there are ways around it. Unfortunately, some homes are just not suitable for solar.
Fair enough. We have Tony has just asked a question. He says, any workarounds for upgrading solar systems that don't lose the premium feed-in tariff?
I wish I could say that yes, there is. No, there isn't. The Clean Energy Regulator is fairly proactive in enforcing the requirements. If your system is X wattage of panels, X wattage of inverter, that's what you must maintain to keep your premium feed-in tariff. Replacing like for like is not a problem. You just can't exceed the system size that was approved when the premium feed-in tariff was given.
Well, that kind of leads to another one here. Somebody said before, my panels are at least 12 to 15 years old. How will I know when they need upgrading?
Okay, well, I think we actually spoke about this question a little bit earlier. It's one of those things where you really need to talk with a solar professional about your exact circumstances. But things like keeping an eye on the system generation, whether you have a screen on it that allows you to log in and see how many kilowatt hours of electricity is generated that day, that month, that year, and compare it to previous years. Keep an eye on your electricity bill is another good one. If you know that you are consistently using the same amount of electricity in your home, and your electricity bill, not so much the total monetary cost, because the cost of electricity purchase has gone up, as has the daily charges, but the actual kilowatt hours that you've imported from the grid, and also looking at the kilowatt hours exported can give you an indication. There are many systems out there 12 to 15 years old that are still doing their job, but if from a financial perspective your electricity bills are increasing, then it could potentially be a time to look at expanding the system or potentially replacing the system.
Okay, and we've got one more from Ron, who's asking, how does the price and efficiency compare when you use solar tiles versus solar panels? And does the heat affect the flexible panels?
I'll start with the flexible panels first, otherwise I'll forget to answer it. Yes, so those flexible panels that I showed in the photo in our slides, it was a requirement at the Port of Melbourne. It's actually a refueling dock for the ships. The water is about 4 or 5 metres to the side of where that photo was taken. And it's basically considered a hazardous area, intrinsically safe environment, explosive atmosphere type scenario. To the point where we couldn't take phones or anything up onto the roof and needed a special camera to take photos. They didn't want to risk having any electrical contacts exposed to the air around the shipping area. So those panels we come up with a custom system whereby they were pretty much glued to a membrane which is glued to the roof. This kept the electrical contacts within the engineering that they required. The roof there, being a light coloured roof, it does stay relatively cool, but yes, they don't have an air gap underneath. So obviously, as the temperature increases, the efficiency of the panels decreases slightly. Very similar thing to the solar tiles. Would you mind repeating the question for the solar tiles?
There's one. How does the price and efficiency compare when you use solar tiles versus solar panels?
Okay, great question. Solar tiles are more expensive. For instance, the product that we've just released, on average, obviously every home is different. The solar tiles that we are selling is about on par, what for what cost wise, with doing a premium sun power solar panel and end-phase microinverter system. So you're talking anywhere from 20 to 40% more expensive than your mid-range solar panel and inverter systems. But the product is designed to be used on a new build roof, as are most solar tile systems that seal well and hold to the roof.
Okay, one more you may or may not know. Are there any government rebates available at the moment for solar?
Yeah, there's always a government rebate involved. Victorian government at the moment has a Solar Vic portal where you can log in, and it will give you the requirements to have the federal government, the state government rebate here, which I think at the moment is around $1,400 of rebate and $1,400 of interest-free loan. I believe the requirements are still that the home was valued at less than $3 million on its previous rates notice, and that those listed on the rates notice had a combined annual income of less than $180,000 in the previous financial year. So that's great. I mean, it's a great initiative. $1,400 off the purchase of any investment like a solar system is a fantastic thing. The federal government still has the STC incentive scheme. So your typical 6.6 kilowatt system at the moment, I think, for instance, for Healesville here at the moment, if you install a 6.6 kilowatt solar system, you would generate around 62 small scale technology certificates, which basically ends up giving you a discount at point of sale with your retailer, whoever you purchase from, which would equate to around $2,300 at the moment off the cost of the system to start with. So,
wow, that's pretty significant. Okay, we were going to move on, but we've got one more question here. Lou has said, you mentioned some of your projects incorporate batteries. What kinds of batteries are you using, and what battery improvements will be on the market next?
So we generally stick with relatively high-end appliances and products. String inverters, we use Fronius and SMA. Microinverter systems will only use end-phase. Batteries, we're also very selective. We use Tesla Powerwalls, and we use Sonnen Evo and Sonnen 9.53, which is the DC coupled. There are products out there which are around 50% the cost of these items per kilowatt hour of energy storage, but we don't think it's financially and economically viable and environmentally efficient to install something that we're not confident is going to see out its warranty period. Obviously, they're still using the same precious metals inside these other cheaper batteries, and with recycling for lithium batteries at the moment not being at a point where it is at the moment, that I think within 5 years' time, they'll be able to safely and environmentally friendly dispose of or reuse batteries. We prefer to use something that we're confident is going to last at least 10 years.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Matthew. That was pretty comprehensive. Now I'm going to pass on to Amy Gregorovich. Amy is an Energy Resilient Communities Officer from Yarra Ranges Council, and she's very excited to tell us about a proposal for microgrids in Healesville. Take it away, Amy.
Thanks, Karen. If you can jump to the next slide for me. So yes, hello everybody, I'm Amy. I'm going to talk you through what the climate action team at Yarra Ranges Council is currently working on, but specifically our microgrid feasibility studies, which are trying to look at how we can take the work that's happening on residential homes and businesses and community facilities to the kind of local precinct level to look after communities at a broader scale. So jump to the next slide, please. Awesome. Thank you. So there are a few key factors that have influenced our work to date in the climate action team. So the storm events of June 2021 have truly influenced our thinking around energy resilience and also the funding we've been able to access to support these projects. So we had 3,000 homes with no power or internet for more than a month back in June of 2021. And this extreme weather truly showed us how vitally important it will be with the impacts of climate change to have community facilities specifically that have solar and batteries, which can act as community relief centres following power outages. We've got the Livable Climate Plan at Yarra Ranges Council, which is aiming to reach net zero emissions for council operations by 2040. And it's got priority actions around supporting community to take their own steps to reduce their emissions. And part of that is my colleagues are working on climate resilient building upgrades to a lot of our community facilities across the Yarra Ranges, which includes a combination of solar installs, batteries where applicable, generator plug-in points for mobile generators, and then a whole suite of energy efficiency upgrades. And we've got a list of 70 locations which have received one or multiple of those upgrades, which is really exciting now. And my work specifically is kind of tying all of that together, looking at microgrid feasibility studies. So they're research projects that are centralised in Healesville, Yarra Junction and Monbulk. Next slide. Thank you. So what is a microgrid? A microgrid is a localised energy grid that aims to connect businesses and homes to nearby energy resources such as solar panels and battery storage. It's got physical connections between hub locations. So we're looking at that as community facilities like the Healesville Library or the Healesville Memo or the shopping centre here in Healesville, having a resilience priority, so that relief or backup system when the main grid goes down. But it also models or includes virtual connections between homes and businesses. So when there's business as usual and the sun's shining and there's no emergency, hopefully a microgrid could provide community benefits of reducing energy costs and helping people transition towards renewable energy. Thank you. So the Active Energy Precincts project is our first microgrid feasibility study that we've been working on since late 2021, and it's focused in Healesville and Yarra Junction. And the specific hubs that the team are modelling are centred around the Memo, the Healesville Library and the shopping centre as our first kind of key hub that we would like to see kept online if the power was to go out, with that resilience priority. But it's also modelling microgrid hubs around commercial centres in Healesville. So we've got the one at the East End, which has got Beechworth Bakery, Innocent Bystander and Matilda Bay Brewery, which have priority centred around that financial benefit of having the power still kept online when the main grid goes down. And then also Four Pillars down in the West End. Jump to the next one. And then we've got the virtual spokes or connections. And this is where we're trying to show what how residents and businesses could participate in a future microgrid if we were able to implement something. So level 1 and 2 participants, as we see it, are you might rent, or it's too shady, like Matt was saying, and you can't put solar on your own roof, but you really want to access local solar generation so that you're moving away from fossil fuels. So participation in a microgrid could allow you to access excess solar within your local community. You might have solar, but receive low feed-in tariffs for your excess generation. So we're trying to look at whether participating in a community energy sharing program through a microgrid would provide better financial return than you doing it alone with your own retailer. And then there's level 3 and 4 participants, which our research is trying to also model. So that might be you're interested in having your heating and cooling controlled in return for lower energy costs. And then also if you've got solar and batteries, optimizing those systems to provide better community benefit across the whole microgrid, but also giving you better financial return, which would be exciting. So the microgrid feasibility studies is a collaborative approach between Yarra Ranges Council, Surf Coast Council and Wodonga Council, Monash University, who are using their research expertise to help us. The Clayton campus operates on a microgrid, so they've been through it before, and Birdwood Energy, who are providing the technical expertise. And it's been a very collaborative approach to work out what is feasible in Healesville and Yarra Junction. Many conversations with AusNet and regulatory specialists. It's a complex world, and something like this hasn't been implemented in a context like our own. So a lot of conversations with everybody and anybody. But community engagement has been a priority for this project, and it's why I'm employed at Yarra Ranges Council. Throughout the project timeline, we've had numerous one-on-one meetings with key stakeholders, including Healesville CoRE, to ask those priorities around energy resilience and cutting costs, and then also net zero. We had a survey that went out to residents and business owners where people kindly shared their household or their business energy data to pop into the microgrid modelling, so we could truly show what was possible in the specific communities. And then more recently, as we've come to the end of the project, we've run focus groups, webinars and workshops to test Healesville and Yarra Junction's interest in community possibly owning or helping governing a microgrid, and their interest in whether or not they'd like to pay more for these type of services, or if you want more for less and all that sort of thing. So we've been on that journey with as many people as possible. I'm not sure what my next slide is. So the Active Energy Precincts project, the one in Healesville and Yarra Junction, is due to come to an end this month, with the research team madly working away on writing up what is possibly feasible for Healesville and Yarra Junction. And the next step is for council and community, including Healesville CoRE, to come together and assess that feasibility study and look at which ones of those hubs we think are suitable for the community benefits we're trying to reach, identify how many people in the town would like to be a part of a system like this, and then also seek out potential delivery partners like people sitting here at this table who would be interested in helping us with the actual implementation of battery and solar and all of the technical stuff that needs to go behind the scenes to implement a microgrid, and then formalise a community group pathway to do that complex ownership and governance model that supports the logistics of a microgrid. And luckily enough, the federal government has funding. They've got a crazy amount, like $50 million for the implementation of microgrids across Australia through ARENA, their renewable energy arm, that's accessible until the end of 2024. And these microgrid feasibility studies are feeder programs into that funding source. So we're very excited to read the 100-page document that is these feasibility studies, and start testing what we think is possible and work out whether or not community has appetite to implement a microgrid in Healesville and Yarra Junction. And I've got here, we're replicating the study in Monbulk as we speak. And the idea is that these reports and all the collateral and kind of the pathway towards implementing a microgrid or this innovative community ownership of renewable energy technology could be replicated across as many townships as possible. So that's our hope and dream, but whether or not it's feasible, we'll see. Wait to read the report. I think that's all. If you go to the next slide, just a couple of resources. We've got a web page where I try to update as much as possible. It's got links to our most recent webinars and media releases and all of that. Monash University has a microgrid toolbox, which goes into a deep dive of what has to happen to get something off the ground. I do a newsletter if people would like to sign up for that, where we'll be talking about what has happened in Healesville and Yarra Junction, but also Monbulk. And then I just have a link there to our Solar Savers program, which is Yarra Ranges Council's program to help residents and businesses pop solar and batteries on their homes. And that one is a good link too, so have a look there. Mm-hmm. But I think that's it from me.
Well, isn't that tremendously exciting news? And Amy, I'm pretty sure you won't be able to answer this question, but somebody is wondering, might be how long's a piece of string, but
yes,
any time frame for
such a good question. Such a good question. So the reporting is due at the end of the month. The project team will get in a lot of trouble from the funders if it's not in. So they're madly working away at that. And part of the Healesville microgrid study was that Monash got a bit of funding to implement a battery somewhere in the system. So there's a battery going in at the Healesville link this week. It's hopefully going to be in by next week, a 108 kilowatt battery. So that's kind of the very first baby step to a future microgrid, but we're very excited by that one. And then I would say there's probably maybe 6 months of conversations and work that needs to go into pulling the feasibility results together to then apply, if possible, for the funding. And then implementation would be A year,
When it happens.
2 years. Yeah, it's a bit of a journey, and it hasn't been done before, which is the tricky bit. So there's no kind of best practice way of doing this. So we're definitely kind of learning as we're going. So I would say, yeah, a year or two, if everything goes to plan, we have the right partners. Yeah, and it might not be council who takes it forward. So all those conversations need to be had. But yeah, very exciting.
Well, I'm excited too. And just one more, if a bushfire occurs,
Such a good question.
will the microgrid keep running?
Yes. So the idea is that if a big storm came through or a bushfire came through that didn't wipe out the town, that conveniently went around it, and the main grid went down, the microgrid would still operate. And the team have modelled different scenarios of how much sun is shining and what the solar would be doing in the microgrid and how much resilience benefit it could provide. So we've asked for them to model how much solar and battery we would need to have 72 hours of on-time relief. So hopefully we can either get generators in by that point or the main grid is back online, fingers crossed. So they've modelled what it looks like if it's a perfectly sunny day, if it's very dark and gloomy, if it's very smoky as well. So hopefully that will come out in the report.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does sound fantastic. Now, one question from Evelyn, sort of around all this. You may not know the answer to this, so we might have to answer this one later on, but just wondering about the extent of uptake of solar panels throughout the Yarra Ranges Council.
Yeah, really good question. And I tried to do a quick Google beforehand and couldn't find the answer. But from our experience with other councils across kind of eastern Melbourne through the Solar Savers program, uptake of that program is highest in the Yarra Ranges. So there definitely is a very big push out in our communities to move towards renewable energy, which is really exciting. And Healesville is a hotspot for that program, which is probably indicative of what's happening and the presence of Healesville CoRE. But the actual stats, yeah, not quite sure of.
Well, we might look into that later.
Yeah, I think a great question. Be really great to know.
Okay. So any more questions coming through, Michelle? No?
We did have one person who was very enthusiastic about a joint microgrid.
Awesome. Woo. We are too.
That's great to hear. Okay, well, there's no more questions. Probably time to wrap it up, and we'll be ahead of time. That's fantastic. So thanks, everyone, for attending. I do hope you found something of interest, something to inspire you. Maybe some action that you can take, small steps to make a difference. And I should let you know this has been recorded and will be available on our website later on. And if there's any questions that we haven't got to, we'll certainly pop those on as well, do a bit of a Q&A session. Before you leave, just another quick call out. We really are really keen to get a training session happening for our home energy efficiency team. If you're interested in that, please jump on our website and get in contact. That'd be awesome. And of course, if you want to join our mailing list, that's another thing that you can do. Go to the website and join. And I promise you, we won't bombard your inbox. We will with emails, but we will keep you informed of developments in the renewable energy field, and and events like this. And if you want to take it one step further, you can become a member. So just for $25 a year, and that just helps us pay our bills, run events like this, do the admin, and just keeps us going. That'd be fantastic too. Now, at the end of these sessions, there's usually like a feedback form or a survey. We've decided to take it one step further. We've actually got somebody who is going to give you a call. So it's just to get more feedback. And if you have any more questions, anything that we didn't cover today that you'd like to talk about, the lovely Rebecca will be calling you within the next week or two. So just to let you know that's happening. And I think that's about it for now. If there's no more questions, we will wrap it up. So I'm just going to say thank you so much to our panellists tonight for giving up your time. It's been fantastic. A huge shout out to our tech team that have waved their magic and made this all happen. You can breathe now, Rod. And thanks to Yarra Ranges Council for supporting us. Thanks to the team at Healesville CoRE. You're a great team to work with at the committee. And of course, thank you to you for tuning in tonight. And that's all from us. Good night.